Tori, and today I'm going to be discussing The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I listened to the audiobook narrated by James Cameron Stewart. So this book is a very fun, atmospheric murder mystery. It's set in this creepy mansion in the English countryside sometime in the 1920s. So the basic premise of the book is that you follow a main character who sees the same day through the eyes of 8 different people. He lives out the whole day through their perspectives, and at the end of it, he's trying to solve a murder and figure out what exactly happened that night. So this book basically feels like a murder mystery party or a game of Clue in book form. And it's designed so that you'll become engrossed in the mystery of who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. And you'll spend all your effort trying to solve this mystery and basking in the glorious atmosphere. And there's some plot mechanics that kind of facilitate this whole occupying the 8 different people and how that all happens. But the book is designed for you to just kind of embrace the mystery and try to solve the murder. And if you are the kind of person who can do that, who can just say, all right, this is a fun story, I get to see it through 8 different people's point of views for reasons, that doesn't really matter, I'm going to try to solve the murder, then you should absolutely go read this book. I recommend you leave right now and do that. I am not that kind of person. I did not care about the murder at all. I didn't care about trying to solve it. I forgot characters' names. I was not at all focused on the murder. I was instead engrossed in the mystery of how this universe works. What is going on with the rules of time travel and occupying 8 different bodies? How all the people interacted with each other? How one person's actions would affect another person's action in the past and in the future? And I spent all my time thinking about the mechanics of this book and kind of ignoring the murder. So I am definitely not the target audience for this book. If you think you might be, then you should definitely go read it. If not, then you can stay and listen to me dissect every little aspect of how the mechanics of this world work and try to figure out what on earth is going on here. So I spend a lot of time thinking about time travel in fiction. The channel Minute Physics actually put out a great video analyzing the different ways that time travel can work in fiction, and I will link that down below. You should definitely go watch that. I'm going to be kind of approaching this book the same way they did and trying to figure out how cause and effect works in this universe. So my first question about the time travel in this book is how much time does each character get? We have Aiden, our main character, who goes through the day 8 different times from 8 different perspectives. Then we have Anna and a couple of other characters who go through the day just once and then they reset every time. And even though this book never used the word time travel, I think of it as basically time travel because the same person is existing in the same space at the same time over and over again. So my question is, when you go through a day, the first version of Aiden starts out in the morning and lives that day through all the way to the end. Then the second version of Aiden time travels back to the beginning of that day, starts the day, and lives it through. Third version all the way through to all 8 versions of Aiden. Now at the same time, Anna is going through this day too. So does she reset every time he does? Does the first Aiden get to talk to a first Anna? After the first Aiden ends his day, does Anna's memory get wiped and a new version of her comes in to join second Aiden? Or is there one version of Anna in this day that is occupied by 8 different Aidens? So Aiden lives through every day 8 times. Does that mean Anna only lives through it once and Aiden has been here 8 times as long as Anna has? Or does Anna reset every time Aiden does, and every time Aiden wakes up, he's dealing with a different version of reality where there is a different Anna doing very similar things, but being a different version. Now, this is also confusing because Aiden can change the future. You see him at the beginning of the book, seeing things that his later selves will do, and then by the time he lives those lives, those things have changed. So if day 3 Aiden sees day 7 Aiden being beaten up, and then Aiden goes through time and gets to day 7 and doesn't get beaten up, then who did he see? Who was the original day 7 Aiden that day 3 Aiden was watching? Is it the leftover of what day 7 Aiden looked like on the last cycle? Because this resets. Every 8 days, Aiden's memory is wiped and he starts the whole cycle over again. So when he sees his future selves, are they really the past versions of his future selves left over with the decisions that he made from his last trip through the time cycle? Or are they projections of what the future will look like based on his current course, but he could still change them if he wanted to? They're definitely not the original people who occupied these bodies, because these are theoretically all actual people who lived in the past and did these things, and we're not seeing their actions, we're seeing the actions Aiden took. So I'm just really confused about how all this time cycle works. Another confusing thing about this book is that the whole premise of this book is that the first person to solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle will escape Blackheath and they'll get to go about their merry lives. But they're not trying to solve the murder as it actually happened. In the end, when Aiden and Anna solve the mystery and get to leave, they don't solve what would have happened to Evelyn if they hadn't interfered. They interfere like crazy and provoke someone else into murdering Evelyn. And we find out that Evelyn was never actually murdered in the first place. So my question is, pretty early on in the story, Anna asks why she can't just kill Evelyn and then say that she was the murderer and be done with it. And that seems like it would have been perfectly viable, because that's basically what they do. They get someone else to kill Evelyn and then say that person killed Evelyn. So they don't solve a mystery. They're not trying to figure out what happened. And then the judges don't even know what happened. So you might think that the judges are looking for the answer of who killed Evelyn, but they don't double check or verify with truth, which is weird because they have so many resources. If they wanted to know what happened, they could easily just inhabit Evelyn or inhabit someone who was right there and learn the truth. So they're definitely not trying to learn the truth, but they're judging it based on who can make the most convincing argument of who killed Evelyn. Like, they would have let Aiden go when he had the wrong person. And that just doesn't make any sense. The judging in this seems so weird. So basically that means that no one actually cares about Evelyn Hardcastle or anyone who was murdered. We don't care about solving the murder at all. And the whole point is that Blackheath is a prison, and that's why Aiden and Anna are stuck here. You know, Aiden came to get Anna because he wanted to attack her, and Anna is here for horrible, horrible crimes. But this is the weirdest prison ever. It claims to be for rehabilitation, but then they really don't want Anna to win and get out, so they don't want to rehabilitate anyone, even if it actually worked as a rehabilitation center, because they're very grudging about letting Anna out. And second, it doesn't actually do anything to rehabilitate you. Solving someone's murder doesn't prove that you're a good person. Saving someone's life might, but if you took Moriarty from the Sherlock Holmes novels and locked him in there, he'd happily solve it, and he'd still be an evil murderer who doesn't care about people's feelings at all. Solving a murder doesn't absolve you of crimes or prove that you're in any way a good person. So I just can't see what the point of it is and what they think they're trying to accomplish. Was this just some kind of a political act where you're going to let these people rot in here forever? But then it doesn't seem like that bad of a prison. I mean, if I had to choose between living the same day like that over and over again, or being electrocuted or locked in a maximum security prison with a bunch of other horrible felons, like, I would definitely choose the day where you can learn to skip around and do whatever you want. And like, if you don't feel like solving the murder that day, you could spend the day curled up in the library reading a book. I don't see, like, it's unpleasant, but it doesn't seem like the worst punishment imaginable. And then how does time pass in this prison? Is it just kind of like in some kind of alternate reality and you'll get out the same time you went in? Is every day in Blackheath equivalent to a day in the real world? And then does that mean if Aiden occupies the same day 8 times and Anna only occupies the same day once, does that mean that Aiden will have aged 8 times more than Anna? Or how does that even work? I'm so confused. And then, you know, when Aiden and Anna finally win and get to leave, then the plague doctor just tells them, okay, you can leave, and they physically walk away from Blackheath. They're not in their own bodies. Why would you try to leave prison in someone else's body? That doesn't make any sense. Where have their bodies been for all this time? Do their bodies age and experience things? Are they in some kind of a tank? Like, what happened? Shouldn't they, like, go to sleep and wake up as themselves? Why would you try to walk away from this? Will they be trapped in these fake people's bodies forever? And then we also don't know anything about the real world. So the real world could exist a day after all of this ended, or it could be thousands of years in the future, or it could be some alternate universe. And this whole situation could have just been made up by the jailers. We don't have any information about this world. And how does anyone even know that a murder took place? Because the whole point of this is that Evelyn Hardcastle's murder was never investigated because it looked like suicide. And these people, whoever's in charge of running Blackheath and making all this time travel whoop-de-doo happen, they don't know what really happened. They don't know that that's not the real Evelyn Hardcastle, that Evelyn Hardcastle wasn't actually murdered. They don't know any of this. So how do they know that someone was murdered? How do they know that a murder happened? And then one more kind of weird thing about this book. I was looking up different editions of the book on Goodreads, and every American edition is called The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. All the British editions are called The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. So the name is kind of weird anyway, because in the book, what really happens is that the actress pretending to be Evelyn Hardcastle dies 7 times, and then the real Evelyn Hardcastle dies once. So I guess the English title would make more sense if it's she who is known as Evelyn Hardcastle died 7 times. I guess that makes sense. Maybe it's because someone pretending to be Evelyn Hardcastle died, that counts as 7, but then the real Evelyn Hardcastle died, that counts as a half? I don't know. I don't know where that number system comes from or why it's different in different countries. Do British people think that 7 sounds mysterious enough, but American people think you need the extra 7.5 in there to make it sound even more quirky and zany? I don't know. It's just strange. The whole premise of this book also felt a little bit weird because you're supposed to be solving this murder and observing the day just as it happened, but it seems like pretty much everyone you meet is occupied by someone else doing the same thing. There are hardly any just original people left, and so you're not really observing anything. You're observing a bunch of people all play acting at being the original people, and there are very few people who are actually the original selves and not a version of Aiden or Anna or one of the competitors running around. And it just doesn't seem logical. So I did like some things about this book. I thought the setting and the ambiance were great, and I love the idea of a murder mystery in book form. But the book left too many of my questions unanswered for me to really enjoy the experience of reading it.